find it, despite no directions.
D&D from A to Z, spells for you and spells for me. We will see what we will see today. Locals galore and monsters roar, nerds adore forevermore. Let's explore some ancient lore. Hey, hey. Hello, welcome. My name is Jordan Maywood and I am the Alphabetical DM. This show is one in which I discuss every monster, spell, location that exists within the Forgotten Realms for some reason. We're in the A still. I suppose spell looks like we're getting somewhat close. Monster got a little ways to go. Ditto location, if I do recall. This is episode 19. 19. Interesting. Debating now. Episode 19, from my perspective, 8 have dropped. I do believe we're at number 8. And we're up to about 31 subscribers. Ooh, is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. Is it right down the middle? Again, no idea about that sort of thing. That's what professionals would probably pay attention to. I sort of come to the conclusion that when we reach the B's, either one or all, probably all, yeah, probably all, I will sort of reassess there if I want to continue doing this, because it's a lot of work. And maybe if we've reached 100 subscribers, I will do so. It's sort of the goal I have in my head, anyways. So we'll see, sort of playing it by ear one or another, not really thinking about it much as I do, sort of living by the seat of my pants. That doesn't make sense at all, and that's why we should probably stop. Regardless, something I should say at the top of every show is that just about everything I say in this thing will be an opinion, so please be warned of that possibility. Should you wish to say someone's opinion is wrong, come on, why? Let's move into today's main subject. PvP. Good thing I've got my old pop filter on this microphone here, because PvP, or player versus player, has many plosives in that. So that's a good thing. Alright, so if you're unfamiliar with player versus player when it comes to any role-playing game, but we usually talk Dungeons and Dragons here, it just means should the players in the game be able to contest with one another. I was going to say fight, but this can mean things other than fight. I suppose if you boil it down, it quite often ends up in fighting, which I guess is maybe showing my opinion on it a little bit right there. It's just, if your players are going to work as a team, and then their characters don't like one another in the game, and they fight with one another, I don't want to say it's inevitable that those sort of feelings trickle forth into the players from the characters, but why have that possibility even exist if you can avoid it, is my general theory. So there's many ways people go about it in terms of how they allow it in their games or do not allow it. There's just, yes, you can fight with each other, you can have contested roles with one another. You can say yes if both of them agree to it. This is a somewhat more common one. I've seen at tables before. It's I can't go up to the other player and say I'm going to try to steal from their backpack while their back is turned. A lot of using the word back there for some reason. But if they allow me to make the attempt, then I can. Why would they want to do that? Just for some role-playing, for to spice things up a little bit. I think this is better than just straight out yes across the board. Now, the one thing I don't like about this, and I've sort of felt this at a table before, maybe on more than one occasion, is the DM will say, okay, player versus player, how do you feel about it? Would you mind if both parties agree? Which sounds like a very sort of forward-thinking way of thinking about it. But then, quite often, because I don't like it, because I don't want confrontation with the other characters necessarily, I always sort of feel a pressure to say yes, which I don't much care for the most part. Like I don't mind being on board. It's just my main grief with this whole thing is comes in the form of things like persuade. Things based on your charisma modifier, so things like persuasion, deception, intimidation. I don't want the players to roll for that. Now, if you want to try to have your character intimidate another character in the game, I want you to actually say what your character is going to say in order to do this intimidating thing. I don't want just a roll to happen, and then the other player has to sit there like, okay, well, I guess because I didn't roll as well, I'm intimidated by this person now. That doesn't feel fun for me, and as quite often comes up on this thing, I run a game that would be fun for me because that's the best way to know if you're doing it right. Because at the very least, you know that one person would like if you're running a game a certain way, whereas if you're trying to please others, that's a sort of scattershot approach like that. Not a good piece of advice, I would say. So no, with exceptions, yeah, well, that's probably what I would go closer to. Maybe there's exceptions where player versus player, like one I sort of purposely did in our last campaign was a scenario where it was sort of mind controlly, where the players found themselves in an arena where they had to battle to the death, and that was just sort of a way to get the feeling of this player versus player that wasn't traditionally there, especially in the fighting sense. So if you can think of a logical reason why your players would be thrown into an arena and fight one another to the death, maybe it's a magical arena and it's almost like a video game, but from a fantasy perspective where they're thrown in like a holodeck sort of simulation, something like that. Many ways you can get around it just to give them that little thrill without the thought that this person's trying to kill me and now I don't like them. Your character and maybe your player as well. No with no exceptions. No with no exceptions is sort of in general in life not a good way to look at things. Oh yeah, and I wanted to throw in this too. What do you do and why? What is your reasoning for allowing or not allowing, or anywhere in between? Throw it down in the Underdark below. I like to hear other people's opinions on things such as PvP. PvP guide. Yeah, I think we should move on to the monster. Albino dwarf warrior, as well as albino dwarf spirit warrior. Yeah, I'm combining these because, and this is the first time we've ever done this, but for obvious reasons. Even the picture is the same. Let's do some comparison. Armor 13. What's the CRs? Does that change? 1 versus probably less than. Quarter, yeah, makes sense. Hand axe, they both have dwarven resilience. The dwarf has advantage on saving throws against poison. Also, no real lore here. I did some digging myself. These are sort of it's actually very interesting. So I wish they had the lore underneath this. So what is the difference? Is some spell casting with this spirit warrior. They got Hunter's Mark, Jump. Ooh, that's kind of creepy to see a albino dwarf jumping at you. Pass without trace, speak with animals, speak with plants. Okay, makes sense. So the cool sort of lore of these guys is they're dwarves who lived underground, on Chult, on the jungle continent of Chult, but due to like volcanic and I guess earthquake, seismic captivity, they were forced to the surface, where they lived in the jungle. And one sort of thing I couldn't quite figure out was they're albino because of the lack of, sunlight or whatever. But normal dwarfs, mountain dwarfs, ones that live under the mountain that definitely have no exposure to sun, why aren't they albino? Whereas these who live on the surface in the admittedly very dark forest because it's so thick, why are they albino? Couldn't quite figure that part out. Just sort of a dwarven offshoot, I suppose. So, as you could tell by their look, they're a little different than your standard dwarf. Now, rating-wise, this is sort of a tough one. I suppose it's very dependent on your locale, because these are, I believe, only live in Chult, on the continent of Chult. So, would you throw them in elsewhere? Well, that's sort of interesting. It would be interesting to come across an albino dwarf somewhere where you're not expecting it. Say in Calamaport, Kalasham, Baldur's Gate, places like that, where suddenly a creature looking like this comes across. Also, they have oh, okay. I thought they had sunlight sensitivity. It would make sense if they did from all this albinism and stuff, but they don't. So rating-wise, I feel like you can use them in creative ways. So I'm going to go a 4. Yeah, a solid 4 for the albino dwarf. Look at this character. Who's this? This is Masharib. Masharib. And he's got, are these tattoos? Is this natural? Fascinating. There's not many examples of it. We got this one. We got this one. Is this one here, I guess? I suppose it could be. See, he's all dressed up. Maybe he's not in his forest home. He left there long ago. Some interesting possibilities, needless to say, for the albino dwarfs. Let's move on to spell. Oh, we got a long one here. Astral projection. You and up to 8... Oh, okay, 8. Huh, interesting. What level is this? 9th. Okay, well, I don't know if we've done a 9th level spell yet. I kind of don't feel like we have, so this is the first. You and up to 8 willing creatures within range project your astral bodies into the astral plane. The spell fails and the casting is wasted if you are already on the plane. Ooh, so that's sort of interesting. If you were in a campaign where you cast this and then nothing happened, would you make the assumption that you're already on the astral plane? That's interesting. The material body you leave behind is unconscious and in a state of suspended animation. It doesn't need food, air, and doesn't age. That's very cool. Some cool things can revolve around that. Like maybe you have someone about to die of a disease and you cast this on them so their body's safe until you can get a cure. Interesting. Your astral body resembles your mortal form in almost every way, replicating your game stats and possessions. Your principal difference is the addition of a silvery cord that extends from between your shoulder blades and trails behind you, fading to invisibility after 1 foot. This cord is your tether to your material body. Now, it doesn't say. Can you see the cord? Can others see the cord? What can cut the cord? Does it just a pair of scissors? Does it just a child running with scissors, which you should not do, have the ability to cut this cord? Or does it need to be special scissors and a special magical child? Your astral form can travel freely through the astral plane and can pass through portals there leading to any other plane. If you enter a new plane or return to the plane you were on when casting the spell, your body and possessions are transported along the silver cord, allowing you to, this is very cool, allowing you to re-enter your body as you enter the new plane. Your astral form is a separate incarnation. Any damage or other effects that apply to it have no effect on your physical body. Huh, that's kind of cool as well. What if you die? I bet you it'll say something here. The spell ends if you and your companions when you use your action to dismiss it. Spell ends for you and your companions when you use your action to dismiss it. Okay. So if I cast it on someone, here's another question. Spells like this, very, very cool, and a lot of questions sort of pop into my mind when I'm reading them. That can sort of turn into interesting stories. So if I cast this on someone and send them to the astral plane, they have no way to leave it. I guess if they leave through a portal, because like I could almost trap them there by not dismissing it. Is my sort of thought process there. Anyway, the spell might also end early for you or one of your companions. The spell might also end early for you and one of your companions. Okay, a successful dispel magic is used against an astral or physical body ends the spell for your creature. Oh, that's interesting. Now, I get it against your physical body, but if someone casts spell magic on your astral body, that's sort of interesting. I don't know if I like that necessarily. If a creature's original body or its astral form drops to 0 hit points, the spell ends for that creature. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So you could kill yourself, and then you'd return to your own body. Interesting. If the spell ends and the silver cord is intact, the cord pulls the creature's astral form back to its body, ending its state of suspended animation. Excuse me. If you return to your body prematurely, your companions remain in their astral forms, must find their own way back to their bodies, usually by dropping to 0 hit points. Oh, okay, so that's cool. The spell doesn't necessarily end if the caster goes back to the body. So that's sort of interesting as well. I wonder how you could do things with that. Drop to 0 hit points is usually the way. So how do the people trapped kill themselves? And you could do a session revolving around that, making it very hard for them to die. Ooh, that's sort of interesting. Normally in a game, normally in a game you are trying to stay alive by whatever means necessary. But what if there's like a time frame needed for you to kill yourself? And what if then you'd also have to drop to 0 hit points. Now, it doesn't say anything about rolling death saves. Like, you wouldn't have to roll death saves. You'd just go back to your body. But what if you did have to roll death saves? And what if you kept passing them and you couldn't get back? There's some interesting stuff I feel like could do around that. Okay, so our first level 9 spell. Lots of cool things sort of pouring forth from it. I think we just go 5 out of 5, needless to say, because things like this could happen. What's going on there? I like it. Let's move on.
You have arrived at your destination.
To the destination of the AERILPAR Forest. AERILPAR? Probably saying it wrong. Fantasy names, you know how I feel about them. The AERILPAR Forest, also known as the Wood of Dark Trees, okay, that I can get behind, both for its animated jungle and dangerous beasts that prowled it, was located in Veldrun in the Shining South. Was located. Is it no longer located? The Wood of Dark Trees was found between the Giant's Belt Mountain and the north of the Lion Tongue River. Some easy to say names there, thank you. Among its more notable features was the mound, also known as the Mound of the Sleepless. Okay, let's get a look at that. True to its name, the trees of the steamy forest were evil. Ooh, evil trees. Gonna get some evil druids in there, probably? It was widely rumored that the trees were some kind of animated monster created by a foul wizard. Get some flying snakes, dark trees, which I guess are these evil trees, and a pair of mated chimera. Chimera, one of these babies. Look at that thing. You don't want to go against that. Okay, let's look at Mound of the Sleepless. No, trees go, encircling walls, predating animals, force kept away. Okay, so rating wise, I do like a evil forest, just in general. So many possibilities there. And where the forest itself is evil is sort of an additional coolness, I would say. So I'm going to go 4.796321 blast off for the AERILPAR Forest. Let's move on to the scenario. If you're unfamiliar with the scenario, it is the segment in which I combine the monster, the spell, the location into one, you guessed it, scenario that you could use in your backstory or use in your campaign or just for poops and or giggles. Let's see what we have here. I've titled it Astral Reality for some reason. A group of Chultian albino dwarves realized that perhaps the jungles of Chult, filled with so very much danger, including goddamn dinosaurs, was probably not the best option for their home. They had come to enjoy living among the trees, though, but their albinism meant that not any old forest would work, so they sought out references to any wood or forest that referenced the word dark. And not too surprisingly, they ended up with a long list. Yeah, if you're ever looking through fantasy forest names, dark is one that appears in them a lot, needless to say. Physically traveling to each to check its suitability for colonization would take many years, so with the help of the albino spirit warriors among the clan, they used the spell Astral Projection to travel to each, including the AERILPAR Forest, which is also called the Wood of Dark Trees. You see where I'm going with this? Now, it is true that the albino spirit warriors did not have access to the ninth level spell Astral Projection, but maybe one of the old ones did. The ancient one had built up. And plus they're spirit warriors, so that sort of combination with Astral Projection, there is a logical reason behind this ridiculousness. The problem, aka plot hook, is that the spirits, astral projectors, of projections of the warriors who went there have not returned for some reason, and once a year on a specific date, one of their bodies suddenly dies. Yeah, so say there's like a group of them, and they all went in their astral forms to this forest and are trapped there somehow, and the years have passed, and every year on a certain date, on the date of the full moon in October, or whatever the months are called in the Forgotten Realms. I don't know off the top of my... one of them dies. So someone will have to travel to the wood in person to see what is causing this. And I think I looked at the map. It was quite a distance between Chult and this, but it wasn't huge. Like it was... they're both near the bottom of the map anyway. So, that's something. So there's your plot hook. And do you send these people in their astral bodies, or do you send them there in probably you have to go there in person, so that's kind of cool. Anyways, let's move on to your questions and answers. Viewer, in quotes, until I start getting questions in the Underdark below, which please feel free to leave some down there. Why don't you? Why don't you? Literally, that is a question, and not rhetorical. Don't need that. So this was taken from a Facebook group, as I do, D&D related, until I can start taking questions from below, and I think I've shortened it a bit. There are woods that drive elves mad if they venture inside. What is inside the woods that the elves need you to destroy, retrieve, investigate, etc.? So these are the type of questions that I like the most. Like I could answer rules related ones easily, and what would you do in this, like doing, but usually my favorite ones are people having trouble with a story point, because those I find are the most fun, because I think the reason I like DMing is for story related and cracking stories like this. So I came up with this. There are rumors that Ichak Orthiel, aka the Elf Eater. Oh yeah, we should get a look at this guy. He was in a book I read once, so that's why I remembered him. Yeah, look at this crazy thing. It eats elves, and it's huge, and it's got cool abilities that allow it to eat elves well. AKA the Elf Eater, use this location to lay an egg. I don't know if it lays eggs, but it could. If it hatches, all elves in the area will be in danger, needless to say, but the madness means they cannot venture into it to see if the rumors are true. So, again, as silly as it is in this magical world where there's a creature that eats elves in a wood that drives elves insane, I like the logic of this creature realizing that if it's going to lay an egg, why not do it in a spot where elves can't easily venture? Dumb things like that make make crazy stuff like this more believable. Just keeping logic involved, I feel like, is never a bad idea. Just like the logic of...
It's done!
ending the show by saying, segue. I suppose that was a segue of sorts, of jorts. Ah, God. Should you wish to help this organization, takethis.org, you can do so quite easily. You could donate yourself. That's an option. I'm not saying don't do that, but what you can also do is like, subscribe, notification bell, things that people ask to do at the end of YouTube videos. Do it here, because when I reach 100, 200, 400, 800, channel may inevitably one day, of course, obviously. I will be donating $10 at every level. And then, again, if this channel ever makes money, half of all proceeds will go to this place, because it helps those with mental health issues, as well as sort of revolves around the gaming world. So needless to say, and they're good people over there who are helping others. Hey, nothing wrong with that at all. So click a few buttons, why don't you, folks? That's it, we did it. We did it, I suppose. That leaves one final thing to say, which is, it's nice to be nice.